Seems like,
Yes,
yeah,
something's happening.
something
Okay, all right,
happening.
we're live.
I think we are live. Yeah, we already
Yeah.
have 4 people connected. So I'm going to close this. And first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you, Nausheen. And hi again.
Thanks so much, Roberto.
I'm so excited to do this live today with you. And I also see people here in the chat. Hi, Eduardo. Hi, Said.
Hello.
And I especially want to thank you because I know this is such an important week for you. You just launched the Confident Accelerator. And as I understand, you slept a little less than usual today. And I want to thank you not only for this, but also because all for the commitment and all the care that you put into this event and the preparation. And this it's a pleasure for me. It's an honor. And I've been following you since the beginning of 2024. And I learned so much from you just by listening and watching your videos and following your content. And actually, you're also part of the inspiration that made me make the decision of doing virtual communication workshop myself. So thank you for that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Roberto. This was such an exciting opportunity for me as well because it's so funny, right? This is so funny how social media works, where we've
Yes.
both been following each other and we never started a conversation till like
Yes.
2 weeks ago. Because I remember I came across your illustrations, like I was telling you, years ago, maybe 2 years ago, because everyone started sharing them, right?
Yeah.
They exploded. And I was like, wow, this Roberto is really talented. And then life happened and we just never really connected, but we were following each other.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me a few weeks ago that we should actually speak to each other. We should have a conversation. And thank you. You're just such a lovely person. And it's been great. I love doing the carousel with you that's posted. If you guys want to check it out, it's posted on our accounts. And now here we are doing this live.
Yeah. And also thank you. Thanks to you. And thanks to the people who's connected because we're investing 1 hour of our time, which is never going to get back. So we cannot buy more. And so we have to make absolutely the most of that. And I'm curious. I want to ask you the first question for you, Nausheen, would be, what's your story?
Ooh, what's my story?
Yeah.
You know that annoying kid who would always get up in front of the entire family and recite the most boring poem ever? I used to be that annoying kid. I've been in love with speaking to an audience, being a voice that people listen to for as long as I can remember. It's actually linked to how I was an only adopted child. So I was the youngest in the family by far. The closest cousin in age to me was 11 years older,
Wow.
and everyone else was older and older.
Yeah.
So I was the person who no one listened to. I was the kid who had to sit in the corner and read her books. But I found myself to be more and more of an extrovert. So I wanted that interaction. And I realized very early on that being on a stage gives you that power. People actually started listening to me. People hushed and they were like, oh, no, she's performing something. Let's listen to her.
Mm.
It was this magical power I had unlocked. And
Yeah.
since that time, I've just been in love with speaking to big audiences. So my one of the first jobs I ever had was a radio show host. And I was doing this radio show for the entire country of millions of people at the time. And then since then I've just spoken on every single stage I could find for nothing, for not for money or anything, just because I had such deep passion for speaking and learning this craft. I became a filmmaker at one point, left the corporate world. I was at Procter and Gamble for many, many years doing communication skills training, among other things. Left that world, became an entrepreneur for the first time. That was about 10 years ago. I was a filmmaker, but that wasn't my dream. I had also just gotten into it. My ex was into filmmaking, and I said, why not? During that time, I remember the thing I enjoyed the most was directing and coaching people to be on camera. And very often, I found myself working with what we called non professional talent, which is a nice way of saying people that aren't actors. So, CEOs, founders who were speaking on camera for the first time, sharing their story.
Yeah.
We would actually create these crowdfunding videos, for example, or these pitch videos for startup founders. And you put them in front of a camera, and they would just become these pale robots. They lost all sense of personality. They just did not realize that they were not doing justice to the way that they were showing up.
Oh,
And that was the first time I realized, wow, this is not natural. It
yeah.
doesn't come naturally to people. And so a few years ago, I took all that passion for speaking on stages, all the experience I had with coaching CEOs to speak on camera. I was also an improviser. At one point, I was a trained improv coach. I took all of that and created a public speaking coaching system that I then use to coach entrepreneurs, execs. I've coached people now at Google, at Amazon, at IBM, at SAP. I've had the honor of coaching a number of thought leaders and influencers like Lara Costa, Ruben Hassid, Yasmin Alec, and it's a lot of it's my passion really. It's the love that I have for being able to communicate to an audience, and I just want to keep sharing that.
Yeah. And I also hear from you this excitement of taking the best out of the people that they already have and they then transform into this robot, as you said, on stage. And I'm very curious because, which by the way, I invite the people who are already connected here and see, hi Amir, hi Rashid, hi Abhijit. I invite you to ask question to Nausheen because we are going to interact. We're having the conversation, but also we are going to check the chat. So please ask whatever you want to hear from Nausheen, what you are curious. And what I'm curious from your story is that looks like there is a value for everyone in sharing the story. How would you invite the people that are listening to share their story, and what's the value for them, for the non-professional speakers? We all are, except you, but I think that you're professional, definitely.
Very often, people stay silent. They stay invisible because they feel that their story isn't worth sharing, that they don't have anything new. And that's something I know because I thought about posting on LinkedIn for many, many years before I actually started. I kept thinking about it, and I would always shy away thinking that I need to accomplish more things
Ah,
before I can build a personal brand.
yeah.
Or who would actually be interested in hearing about my story? Turns out a lot of people. A lot of people want to know what you've done, how you got to where you are. You don't need to be Simon Sinek or Alex Hormozy to be able to share your story. You just have to be you. When
Yeah.
you share your story, it's so powerful because you are not keeping the lessons that you've learned to yourself. It's actually a selfless act because you're sharing with people, these are the hard life lessons that I've learned. Maybe this is going to help someone. This is how I got from A to B. Maybe you want to get to B and you're somewhere in the middle. This is how you can get there. This is one way. May not be the only way, but let's say that you go and you hear 10 different stories. Now you have 10 different ways of getting to point B.
Yeah.
You're just richer after
Yeah.
having heard that story.
Absolutely. And I think there are also two sides. There is one side that is the beauty of seeing someone who is just a few steps ahead of you. It's not all the way. So even if you say, oh, no, it's not yet, not yet. I will do three more things before I share. Maybe there's someone who is just a little behind you in a sense of experience, not of judgment. And they be inspired by that. And then I would add one thing, because you said it's a selfless act, and I agree. And at the same time, there is something very personal, because when you share your story, you really think that if you believe it or not. So you are clear about who you are and what you want because you're sharing that, because you're doing it in
Yeah.
public.
This is so true. There was a point where a wise friend told me that we are just stories we tell ourselves.
Mm,
This was a time when I felt very low. I was actually at that time talking about being a filmmaker. I was still a filmmaker at the time. And I was telling this friend, I just feel like such a failure. I don't feel like a visionary. Filmmakers are like Tarantino, people that have vision and they bring it to life. And I just, what am I even doing with my life? And they just said, well, you have to think of what is the story that you want to tell yourself, that you have to tell yourself about your life and your talent. And so the story that I told myself was, yeah, it's because I didn't tap into what I was really passionate about. And that story is the real story. It's just that we make up these stories to tell ourselves and we start believing them. I have no talent for this. When, yeah, maybe you don't. You have talent for this other thing. Why aren't you looking at that? Or this is too scary. Yeah, it is scary. Is there going to be a big return at the end of it? That's the story you should be telling yourself. This is going to be worth it. That's the story. So yeah, stories are so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you say all of this, there is a question that I think it connects with this, and which, by the way, I also want to ask the people um, in the audience: what's the biggest challenge that you, who are listening to this live, are facing in public speaking, in this sharing your story? And I'm curious about your experience because you coach hundreds of people. What's the most common challenge in your view of all these people that you met and you coached?
I would say the number one challenge is waiting too long, waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting till you have the perfect lighting, the perfect camera, the perfect system to create videos, or waiting till you have the perfect speech or the perfect experience to
Yeah,
showcase before you even pitch to an event to speak at. The waiting means you're essentially losing out on building your brand, building your reputation, building your authority in that entire time.
yeah,
And speaking opportunities come. A lot of my clients, before they started working with me, they would just say no. And they would come to me and say, Nausheen, I've just been saying no to these podcasts, to these events because I don't feel ready.
mm,
The idea really is you don't feel ready. You never feel ready before
yeah,
your first time. You
yeah,
have to first do it and then realize, yeah, I guess I was ready after all because I did do it. And then, of course, you have to you can't just stop there because I did a lot of deep dive and research into what confidence really is. One of my TEDx talks was on what comes first, confidence or action.
yeah,
Because on the other end, there is this myth that okay, if you just do it, you'll build confidence, but that's not true.
mm,
Doing the scary thing is one part of it, but that's only half of it. The other half is that story that we were talking about. What do you tell yourself after you do the scary thing? Are you telling yourself that was just pure luck? It was a fluke. It's not going to be the same next time. Or are you telling yourself, I did that? That was cool. That was me. That means I can do the next scary thing and the scary thing after that because I am capable. That's what really builds confidence.
yeah. I love that. It's like if you have the mindset of playing to win, you always win. Because if it goes well, I say, wow, I did it. Next time I will do it even better. And if it goes bad, by whatever standard, you say, okay, but I did it. And next time it will be even better. And I could overcome this. And now the next time I will not make this mistake again. So
Yeah.
exactly. Wow. And yeah, I remember actually the first time that I did this kind of lives, it was terrifying. The moment that I played
Yeah.
live, let's go live. Oh, wow. Will it work? Will it not work? Will it get hanged? So exactly like that. And then it so much resonate what you say because at the end I was like, wow, I did it. It was amazing. I do the next one even better. And by the way, the first live I did was PJ Milani. If you don't follow it, with the people who's not following, he's an amazing creator. And the first one was with him. And yeah, it was very crappy, the quality of the video, but we had so much fun. So
Yeah.
that's great.
This
Thank you
is
for that.
this is one of the hard lessons I also learned from my filmmaking days. When you're on a film set, anything and everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And so it's about figuring out how do you deal with it in the moment. I was just speaking at London Tech Week a month ago, and I kid you not, my laptop wasn't connected to to electricity to like I forgot to plug in my charger, and I realized this halfway through my presentation when you know how the screen just goes blank, it goes into power saving mode. So every few seconds I had to go and touch my computer
Yeah,
physically. At one point I didn't have a clicker. The clicker refused to work because Mac. And so I was constantly going from where I was on stage back to my laptop, tapping it, coming back to my laptop, tapping it, and I had to deal with it. And I
yeah,
used it as an example in that workshop, in that talk, because people were asking me, well, what do you do when things go wrong? And I was like, did you notice how many things went wrong? Did you still have a good time? And everyone was like, yeah, it was great. And I said, well, it's about how you deal with the stuff going wrong.
yeah. And that's also the story that we tell ourselves. And if something goes wrong, I also see it's more human. No one wants to see a robot, as we shared in the carousel. No one wants to see a perfect robot on stage with everything figured out, with perfect motion,
Yes.
synchronized with the music, and comes out at the. This is not real, and this is not real on stage, and this is not real in our private meetings or whatever. So this is what it is. Yes,
Mhm. It's
thank
more
you.
important to be human now, more important than ever.
Absolutely. And speaking of human, let's check if we have some question in the chat because I see a lot of questions, a lot of chat. So let me go through from the beginning. Hi, Jose,
Yeah.
Ishan, Samuel. Question. Most people are hesitant to initiate conversation, or in some case, they even try to do that. They're stuck after initial starters. How to improve on that and move toward being noticed? So it's how to start a conversation.
Hmm.
Hmm. What would you
How to
say?
start?
How to
Was it
start?
how to start a conversation one on one?
Yeah, and I guess what Parker is saying is that after the starters, how to have a meaningful conversation with someone and not just be stuck on the okay, let's how are you doing, how's the weather, blah 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 blah. What I'm going to
Yeah.
say.
Right. So there are two strategies for this. One is becoming an excellent listener. And I really mean an excellent listener. I had a coach very, very early on, Mike Frank. I recommend following him because he's a great presence. And he taught me the 5 levels. There are apparently 5 levels of active listening. Very often we throw around the term active listening, but people don't actually know what that means. There is the superficial level, right? Where you're going through the motion, but in your head, you're like, what am I having for dinner?
Yeah.
Whose email do I need to reply to? Where are my kids? Where are my kids? So I feel like that's maybe what you're thinking. So
Hopefully
that's
not.
that's a superficial level. There's another level where you learn to silence those other voices and you learn to be 1,000% present in the moment. That level is very intentional. You don't just get there by fluke. You get there because you train yourself to be an excellent listener. There's another level beyond that. So that's like the second highest where you're really present and you're listening. And the level beyond that is listening to what's not being said, looking at body language, expressions. Is someone constantly looking at the door? Of course, looking at the watch is a very simple thing people learn to notice, but looking at the door, if someone's looking at the door, that means they really need to go somewhere or they want to escape or they're uncomfortable. If someone is touching themselves a lot, this is a sign that they're again not very comfortable. They're kind of, if they're just always fidgeting. So learning to understand signals like that, micro expressions like that, it really elevates the level of listening that you're at, how good you are at being tuned into the other person. Because this part prepares you for part two, because I said there were two parts. The second part is learning how to ask and engage in meaningful ways and inserting yourself into the conversation. Have you been in those weird conversations where it's like an interrogation, right? Where someone's just like, "Hey, Roberto, what do you do? Oh, okay. So how did you get there? Oh,
What's the
okay.
job? What's
So
the
how
job? Yeah.
yeah, are you married? Oh, how many children do you have? Oh, what does your wife do?" You're like, I did not sign up for a media interview. What is happening? But that is literally the person trying to get to know you
Yeah.
without inserting themselves into the conversation in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
It's not about taking over the conversation, because that's the other extreme if someone just keeps talking about themselves. But it's about figuring out, for example, if you're telling me about LinkedIn and I say, oh yeah, I'm on LinkedIn too, that's something that I started doing a few years ago. When did you start? So I'm showing you, I listened to what you said, I put a little
Yeah.
bit of myself in there, and then I asked you a follow-up question. And this technique works every time with everything. Just think about what the person is saying. Think about something that you can connect with your life, your experience, your point of view. Express that, and then ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love how you blend not your own experience, the other person. So it's a dance. It's not like,
Yeah.
okay, my turn, your turn, blah, blah, blah. And I would add one thing that even if you don't know anything, maybe we can find something that we are curious about. And so if we ask, what's the thing that excites you the most? Any project that you are very interested in, and then the person will automatically share because
Yeah.
it's something that excites him or her at that point. So even if you don't know anything, if it's genuinely interesting for you, you can ask a follow-up question, and this is not an interrogation, but it's more like it's a one way because they are the expert and you are listening. So and usually I did this sometime with people, very interesting people, and I say, wow, how many things I learned today. So that was
Yeah.
a great question, and thank you for sharing this perspective, Nashin. And the more questions. This is
Yes.
interesting. How do you help the people synchronize body and mind in communication? I think you mentioned something in the previous question about probably the coherence between your thought and your
Mhm.
words and your body language. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yes, very often, especially when people are on one specific medium. Let's say you have someone who's used to talking in person and they're not used to speaking on camera. They might forget body language. They
Mm,
might not know how to tap into their energy. Very often you see people kind of just like this, and they're not using their hands, they're just talking with their faces. And look how less impactful this is and weird, right? Versus me just using my hands naturally. In fact, if you use your hands on camera, you're doing a lot of favors to yourself, because showing your hands psychologically signals trust.
mm,
It's weird, but there's actually a part of our lizard brain that is tuned into that, because at one point we were cavemen and we would meet new people, and if someone had their hands behind their back and you couldn't see them, that meant they could be hiding something and they're going to kill you.
yeah,
But if you meet a stranger and you can see their hands, immediately you feel like, oh, I can trust this person, they're not hiding anything. So this the simple act of actually using gestures on camera, it builds that trust. Of course, in real life people can't see your hands, so this is specifically for
yeah,
camera, where you have to be very, very intentional about showing your hands and showing your gestures. And then something else that happens that I see with clients very often is they have a poker face. And somehow I see this more in men. I'm not saying that's always the case, but
they play
men
more poker
sometimes,
than
well, I don't know if that's the case, but people have told me, a lot of senior leaders have told me that
yeah.
as men, they have been trained to hide their feelings. It's
Mm,
literally a conditioning that they've gone through. And
yeah,
that means not being expressive with their face. Well, if you're not expressive with your face, there is that disconnect, like you
yeah,
said, between what you're saying and what your face is saying. And because we as humans pick up on body language, on cues, that means you're creating dissonance for the audience. They're
yeah,
more distracted by that disconnection than they're actually tuned into your message. So you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. The
yes,
best way to do it is to really be in coherence, to very intentionally bring expressions and emotions into whatever you're saying. And there are always expressions and emotions to bring in. Even in the driest of talks and the driest of industries, you will always have emotion, because we are emotional people. You will have
yeah.
passion, curiosity, surprise. So it's always possible, and is absolutely something that you should be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And to what you said about men not showing their emotion, I 100% agree. And actually, this is something that I worked with my coach before being a coach myself, and even after that, because we never end learning. And yes, and you make a disservice to yourself because people will not trust you, because if they cannot
Mm.
read what's your emotion, they say, okay, again, as the hands, what Roberto hiding? I cannot read him, so I don't trust him. Uh, and then you mentioned another thing about the virtual and in person. And now I'm curious. I want to ask you a follow up question of my own. And what's the things that you would say change between in person and virtual? And what can be a suggestion for the people who's listening to have better online meetings? Because we have a lot of online meetings, especially after the COVID. Now it's 5 years. We are so used to that.
The best way to think about it is, what is the goal? And I will venture to say that the goal in almost every single case, if not every case, is to connect with the audience.
Yeah.
And this is true regardless of what you're doing, whether you are a startup founder doing a pitch for investors, whether you are a CEO talking in a boardroom, whether you are an entrepreneur creating a video, doing a LinkedIn Live. In every single instance, the idea is to connect with your audience.
Yeah.
So the goal remains the same, regardless of whether you're speaking in person or online. And then it's about, well, what are the differences? How do you connect with the audience in person? How do you connect with them online? And that's where the differences happen. In person, personally, I feel that is much easier. And a lot of people that are used to doing in person presentations seem to agree that it's easier reading the audience when they're right in front of you. You can see who's engaged, who's on their phone, who's nodding and smiling at you, who's frowning, who is leaving the room. And all of that shows you, gives you cues as the speaker. Am I interesting? Am I engaging? Do I need to change gears? Do I need to engage them more, ask more questions? And so it's this exchange of energy between you and the audience that's there in person, much easier. But sadly, a lot of people don't do that. They don't bother engaging. And that's a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah.
When it comes to speaking on camera, there isn't necessarily an audience in front of you. And a lot of people get phased by that. They lose energy, they lose that connection, especially when they can't see people.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there are a number of ways to work around it. One, simply, if you're on a meeting, if you're on a webinar, if you have an audience and they're not turning on their cameras, it's perfectly fine to ask at the beginning, hey, I just want to see all of you. I want to connect with you. Do you mind turning your cameras on? At least 50 to 60% of the people will turn their cameras on. So don't be shy of doing that as the speaker if you're doing a presentation or a webinar. What if there is no audience? So a number of clients have this problem, this challenge, where they come to me and they say, Nausheen, I have to make videos, but there's no one there. I cannot talk to myself. And in that case, there are also workarounds. It depends on what works for you. So the idea is to experiment and iterate. So a lot of people have used different techniques to work around that. The idea is, how do you bring about that sense of human interaction without human interaction? One way is to have a conversation with someone right before you're recording. So you're already in conversation mode and you just continue it. And so you're tricking your brain into thinking, I'm just continuing a conversation.
Yeah.
So that makes it natural. For others, it's seeing a picture of someone. So a picture of a client or a friend or a partner, and just having that on top of your camera somewhere. And that way you're just speaking to a person. I've even had people tell me that they've rehearsed their talks with stuffed animals sitting on a couch looking at them. And that gives them an audience. Whatever works for you. All I can guarantee is something will work, because the idea is you have to figure out what is that thing that's stopping you from bringing that energy and having that connection, and then solve that problem.
Oh, wow. I love it. And I will do it. By the way, I
Yeah.
will. I have here a lot of figurines. I will talk to Iron Man next time and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's great. Absolutely. So it's like putting yourself into one state of mind that you are in a conversation. Wow.
Yeah.
And you can do it as many times as you want. So you can experiment, see what works. As you said, you try once, try talking to Iron Man, doesn't work. You try another thing. Wow. Thank you so much. That's
Of
very good.
course.
And one thing I would like to add to the camera would be, at least for me, not looking at myself. If I look at myself, it
Mm.
looks like I'm talking to a mirror, and it loses all the human. But I don't talk to myself in the mirror usually. so,
Mm.
and also in the meetings, taking off our self view lets us be much more connected to the people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. This is actually exactly the reason why I tell people they shouldn't practice in a mirror. You know how there's the age old advice, which I'm completely against.
Yeah.
Just look into a mirror and practice your speech or practice your talk. No, it doesn't work. It just makes you feel self conscious.
Mm. Now I'm curious. What's the most common aha moment that you see in your coaching clients when they say, "Oh wow, now I get it"? What's that?
Mm. It's weirdly enough the amplification of themselves.
Oh,
Now, I always tell people this, and it seems very theoretical till they actually do it. When you're on stage, when you're on camera, anytime that you're talking to a group of people, you need to be yourself plus one. That's a weird way of putting it. You need to
yeah,
be yourself multiplied by X%, whatever
yeah,
that is. So 110% of yourself, 120% of yourself. What that essentially means is, let's look at what happens in the other 80% of your life when you're not on stage, or 90% of your life when you're on the couch talking to your partner, when you're talking to your team, when you're having regular interactions with a friend. How are you showing up? Generally it's something like this, right? Hey Robert, what's up? What's going on? We good? Yeah, all right. I want to get some pizza. You see that the energy is lower, it's more chill, it's more relaxed, and that's totally fine. But when you're on stage or when you're on camera, you are the energy floor and the energy ceiling for your audience, which means they're either going to sink to your lack of energy or they're going to try to match your energy. That means you have responsibility. You need to show up with 110% of yourself. So I'm not asking you to go and fake it.
yeah.
And that's the number one myth where people think, Nausheen, I don't want to act. I don't want to be inauthentic. That's not it at all. It's actually finding the kind of persona that you want to show, that you want to share, multiplying it, multiplying your energy. Very often I ask my clients on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least energetic and 10 being the most energetic, where are you? Where are you showing up as? And typically they'll tell me, okay, maybe like a 4. And then I say, okay, what does a 6 look like? I don't want you to be a 10. I don't want you to be Tony Robbins, where we're like, let's go, everyone. That also turns people off. So don't be a 10, but be a 6, be a 7. Really bring more of yourself to the interaction and people will reciprocate.
That's beautiful. It's like turning up the volume. It's not
Yes.
faking something. It's something that you already have. I just put Nausheen at volume 6, 7, 8, or whatever, 10 if you want 10. And then you choose which volume you also want to put. It's not like I always have to be like 10, as you said. But again, as you said before, uh, not being monotone and changing. So maybe with a moment you can be a 10 and then you can go down and you guide the people with you in your talk or in the meeting. Wow. Thank you. Let's check if we have some more questions. I see here.
Yes.
Uh, thank you, Said. I invite everyone who doesn't care about my story to ignore it. That's the spirit. Exactly. Tell your story, and if you don't like it, you can ignore it. That's a beautiful point. And thank you, Said, for that, because I want to introduce one thing, which because I also appreciate a lot your style. You use a lot of humor. Now you're just making jokes. And what's the importance of humor in public speaking?
This is a great topic because it's very misunderstood.
Yeah.
People think humor and they think knock knock jokes. That's not it. I don't want any of my clients to become stand-up comedians unless that's what they want. Most of them don't want that. Humor is simply not taking yourself too seriously. And I believe
Mm,
this was also one of the illustrations that you
yeah.
had, Roberto, in the carousel that we did together.
Yes.
If you're taking yourself too seriously, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. You're not letting yourself be human. You're not relating to other people. You said at the beginning, no one wants to see a robot. We want to see other people. And part of that is sometimes poking fun at yourself, at the situation, just making things lighthearted. Because when you're speaking, when you're delivering a talk or a presentation or doing a podcast, you don't want to lecture people.
Yeah.
No one wants to relive your school days where you had these boring lecturers who just went on for hours, and all you had to show at the end of that class was doodles. You remember all those? Yeah, I mean, you probably did more of them than me,
Yeah.
but that's boring.
Yeah.
To start a conversation with people, it all goes back to that connection that you want with the audience. Humor is a great tool, and it just means lightheartedness, not taking yourself too seriously. And of course, there's a time for seriousness. You're talking to your board about how the profit margins are running thin. You don't want to make a joke. There is a
Mm,
time and a place.
exactly.
If you're
Yeah.
creating an atmosphere of fun for, let's say, new hires and you're onboarding them, yeah, maybe that's a great time to insert humor. Of course, we're a serious company. We want to show you the rules and all that. But here's something fun that you can do. Here's something that we do for fun, for example. Just adding in that lightheartedness elevates the entire interaction from a lecture to a conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, I would add that the speaker has more fun if we do
Mm,
it like this, because we also want to have fun. We don't want to listen to a lecture, of course, but and I would also add that we don't want to give a lecture because for that you have ChatGPT, you ask and you put the voice, and now with Notebook LM or whatever, and you put the podcast, and I say generate a podcast between Roberto and Nausheen talking about how to be from invisible to influential, and it will be great, but that will be zero human and not fun, of course.
so
Yeah.
true.
Thank you, Nasheed. And thank you, Said, for bringing up this. Let's see. We have more question. Uh, yeah, don't use the mirror. Exactly. And okay, there is a question from Apurva here
Mm.
in the last no, one of the last one. I usually zone out when speaking publicly. Somehow the expression of people catch my eye, bad or good, and I start thinking what they're thinking and forget my part in stage. Oh, that's a great question. And thank you, Pufa, for sharing that, because I'm sure that more than one people in the audience, and even myself, I admit, I've been through that. So what's your take on this?
You have to develop a way to be 1,000% present in the moment.
Mm,
We don't work like that in our regular conversations. When you're talking to someone, when you're in a meeting, again, you're thinking about all those things that we talked about. Your brain is just going into overdrive and
yeah,
multi processing. Well, guess what? Research has shown multiprocessing, it just doesn't work. Multitasking is not a thing. Your brain just becomes more and more frazzled, more and more broken up into pieces. It is entirely possible to develop that sense of intentionally being all there, really all there, silencing the other voices. I actually use a filmmaking metaphor here. Imagine that you're on a film set
yeah.
and you have the actor, you
Mm,
have the writer who's written the script, and you have the director. Now, the actor needs to act, right? But imagine that the writer keeps running up to the actor and says, "No, no, no, say this instead. Oh, no, 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 I rewrote. Oh, no, 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 here, more. No, 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 change this." And the director keeps yelling, "Cut. No, 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 do it again. No, 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 stop." Can the actor actually deliver a good performance? No,
no.
that's what you're doing to your brain. The more that you are second guessing yourself, and telling yourself, that was awful, say that differently. Ah, stop it. Just, oh, no, 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 that's something else that I wanted to say. The more that you're rethinking, changing things around, you're just putting yourself under undue pressure. You're not all there. You're inviting the writer and the director to come to the camera, and that's, you're not going to make a film that way. So the idea is the writer does their job, the way that your brain is articulating the thoughts passes that on to the mouth, and then let it be. Let yourself be in the moment and trust that you've come up with the right things to say. They may not be the right things to say. Reflect on them afterwards. Be
Mm,
your director, but afterwards, watch yourself back.
yeah.
Look at where you can improve next time and what you did well. And that's the best way to improve every single time that you speak, being 100% present in the moment.
Wow, that's beautiful. And this connects so well with one of my coaching training, which is the voice of the saboteur, in which
Mm.
we personify our saboteur. We all have our saboteurs. I have my saboteur, multiple saboteurs probably. And they come out when we stretch ourselves a little bit. So you can also, Apurva, give yourself credit, because when this voice of the saboteur or the director or the writer comes out, it's because you're doing something that stretches you. So you can give yourself a kudos. Okay, I'm doing something hard, something, as we said in the beginning, to conquer the fear. So you can put yourself in the, okay, I'm doing this, I'm being brave. And then one other thing will be, as you said, when you notice and you train yourself to notice, it gets easier, because then you can say, okay, I hear this. I will listen to you, saboteur, later. Now I'm going to do my speech and do whatever, but I hear you. I don't ignore you. So I would also add, don't ignore completely the saboteur. Don't try to shut them out, because if you do, then they shout until you hear them. So you notice, okay, I saw here a saboteur. Hello. Now I'm going to keep talking, and then I will talk to you later. Great question. Thank you, Apurva.
Mm.
Okay, and let's see. Oh, that's another great. We have a lot of questions. By the way, thank you so
Yeah,
much. Yeah, because
great questions.
and it also every question connects to the other one, so it's great. Thank you so much for all these questions. I have a question from Eduardo. Hey, ciao Eduardo. Grazie. That's the only Italian we're going to speak today. And how do you find your own voice and style? The energy level that's best for you, the style that works best for you, the pauses, the volume, etc. Beautiful question. Thank you, Eduardo.
I can be very cheeky here and say that's what a public speaking coach is for, because it's true.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I work with clients on, because if you can absolutely do this yourself, but if you have someone who has experience, who knows what great speakers are like and what tools they use, first is about learning the art. So I liken this very often to learning to paint, for example. When you go to art school, the first thing you do is you learn what the masters can teach you. You don't just start doing things yourself, unless you're a child prodigy, those exist. But in general, you
Yeah.
first learn the rules. You learn what is abstract art, what is expressionism, what is whatever, all the different surrealism, all the different types of art. You learn how to do them based on how the greats have done them.
Mhm.
Then, once you reach a certain level of competence, you start playing with things, you start breaking the rules, you start mixing things up. Pretty much the same as learning any craft, really, if you think about it. If you learn how to cook, if you're learning how to play music, it's exactly the same with public speaking. First, learn the so called rules. Now, public speaking as a craft, I would say, is less regimented versus something like art or something like cooking or something like music.
Yeah.
But there are definitely tools that the best speakers in the world use. I have distilled this into my voice energy body language system. Different coaches, different trainers use different ways, but it's all essentially the same. How do you play with your voice? How are you showing up with your energy? And how do you use your body language? First, understanding, what do those tools even mean? What does it mean to play with your voice? What does it mean to vary your pitch? When should you do that? Should you elongate your words? When should you shorten them? When should you go faster? When should you enunciate more? When should you add pauses? Learning the rules and then figuring out, okay, how do I use them? What do I sound like when I am higher energy and talking faster and using more gestures and changing up the stories or adding more stories? What does that sound like? Does that sound like me? So that's all the rinse and repeat part of the process
Yeah.
where you iterate, you record
Right.
yourself, you go on podcasts, you get the reps in, and then you look at what are you doing well and what can you do better. So that's essentially what you would get with public speaking coaching. And yes, you can replicate it yourself, but having that extra pair of eyes, just like a coach for athletes, a
Yeah.
coach for high performers, that is absolutely essential. It really, really helps accelerate your growth.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. And now the question that comes to me naturally, now that you said that this is exactly what you do, I'm curious, and I'm sure many people are also curious about your confidence accelerator, which you just launched this week. Can you talk a little bit about that and what's the value? Why are you so excited about that now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an entire system that I've created after many, many, many months of research and iteration and having a lot of beta testers. Is an entire system that I've created to really boost your confidence through making sure that you're getting live coaching and feedback. So that's where the coach comes in, where you get that external point of view on how are you speaking? How are you showing up? What kind of stories are you telling or not telling? So there's the live coaching aspect. There is the aspect of a curriculum. So there is an entire course that I've created. And for those of you who may not know, I create courses regularly for LinkedIn Learning. I actually did LinkedIn Learning's first ever course on AI and public speaking. You can look that up on LinkedIn Learning. But this course, it beats all the other courses I've ever done. It's 55 lessons, and it takes you from all the way from building confidence to figuring out what works well in a presentation to voice delivery, body language, to improvisation, to handling tricky questions, to practicing all of these tools. So there's a course component that you can learn by yourself. And then there's master classes where I bring in guest experts and have you learn from them how to become a paid speaker, how to make sure that you're showing up with different kinds of stories from a storytelling coach. I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping to also get Obama's ex speechwriter,
Mm.
Terry Zuplat. I had a conversation with him a few weeks ago. We recorded a podcast together, and he's just the nicest person. And we talked about how Obama really developed confidence in his speech, in his speeches, and in his way of showing up and speaking. And so there's a lot that we can learn from him.
Wow.
So there's all these live master classes, and of course there's the community aspect. So in a way, it's actually more interesting than my one-on-one coaching, which actually costs about 80 times more than the confidence accelerator. I did the math at one point. The one-on-one coaching is great for senior leaders, for CEOs who want that customization, but there's no built-in audience. Public speaking is about speaking to public. And so here we have a community, we have a built in audience that serves as a safe environment for
Mm.
anyone that wants to come and practice a talk, practice improvisation, practice the next webinar, the next podcast, the next interview they're going to do. And that is this invaluable aspect that I'm building together. And I'm really working on building this culture of collaboration and support and curiosity within the confidence accelerator.
Wow. Thank you. And this is, I can definitely feel all the passion, that you have put into this. And it looks like it's the concentrated version of everything that you learned so far and put it in the very compressed version. And also with this accountability and this community that's part of it. So maybe we can drop the link in the chat if you
Oh,
have it
sure.
in hand.
Sure. I can share that.
Because I see here people saying, I took your LinkedIn, for example, Cody saying, I took your LinkedIn course, valuable insights and tactical skills. Thank you. Yeah, okay, here you have. Now I'm curious. And
Mm.
at this point, what would be your biggest challenge, Nausheen?
Mm. Depends on, are we talking business wise or authority wise?
Maybe
Yeah.
yeah, in this that we're discussing until now, so that in showing up and we talk about our own voices of the saboteurs, and I also have that. What would be the thing that maybe sometimes you say, okay, can be a challenge, and what we can learn from that also?
Hmm. I think of my challenges as missions, not so
Oh,
much as challenges. I
oh
have
yeah.
missions. I have very very clear defined missions that I have for the business, for my personal brand, and they're not super surprising. You wouldn't be surprised. So for example, one of my missions is to publish a book next year. I have been writing it, then I put it on pause as we do, and I need to get back to it. I'm developing this. I'm developing what it really needs to be around, and something that's really coming to the surface is this idea of turning yourself on, of being that 110%, and how do you create that mode for yourself, and how do you figure out how to flip that switch, because the best speakers, they can really flip that switch. You tell them, just like actors, just like the actor going from the wings of the theater, from the backstage right up to the stage, they just blossom, right? They spring into action. They assume that role. The best speakers do that. You
Wow.
can be talking to them 1 second, and then they go on stage and they become this amplified version of
Yeah.
themselves. They don't change, but they turn on a switch. So that's the mission on the book. Another mission is getting a PhD. So I have a master's, and the next step is a PhD. That was the one of my childhood dreams. It's weird. I've always been a nerd. I don't know why. From,
So
I
the
think the time I
curiosity
was
is the curiosity, as you said. Yeah.
maybe I think when I was maybe 13 or something, I told myself like I need to have a PhD one day. So that is a mission. I would love to be Dr. Chen one day. And it's absolutely going to be in communication, in the psychology of
Wow.
communication. There is research that has been done on that, but not as much as you would think.
Oh.
There isn't as much research on, for example, how does poor communication affect your success in life?
Oh.
How does showing up with more clarity improve morale for the
Yeah.
business if you are in a position of power? There are so many links that we know exist.
Yeah.
There isn't enough research as far as I know. So that's the next mission. And then a third mission is YouTube.
Mm.
YouTube. That's going to be a mission for 2026. I have not paid as much attention to YouTube as I should have, because I've been really busy with LinkedIn. So this year I worked a lot on Instagram, and I have grown there. Nothing compared to LinkedIn, but yeah, if you want to check me out, there are videos on Instagram that I don't post on LinkedIn. So there
Ah.
is value in following me separately on Instagram. But Instagram growth is slow, and I'm constantly discovering new things about it. So YouTube is the next challenge. Absolutely, for 2026, it's something I cannot run away from anymore, and I know it's intimidating for me, because a new platform,
Yeah.
new algorithm, new ways to go down rabbit holes and obsess
Yeah.
over things, but it's got to be done. I have those
Wow.
three missions.
Yeah. Thank you, Nashi, for the transparency. And also, I love the reframe from challenge to mission. And I also want to share my mission, which
Yes.
sounds a little bit weird talking about mission, because for me, the challenge is too many things at the same time. As you mentioned, I see a lot of myself in what you said, because I want to do this, I want to do the workshop, I want to do and now I'm doing the vibe coding, and so many interesting things that if you follow them all, you will go nowhere. So the challenge, as you probably are doing now, you're focusing on one thing, you do that, and then okay, now on that, and that, and that's sometimes when you're very excited about something, you want to do it all. Say, okay, pause. There's time, and then if it's so important, it will still be there in 1 year, and then you decide, okay, this year is the year of whatever, the PhD or the book. Which, by the way, I see people saying, put me on the waiting list for the book. So
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that a
Yeah.
lot.
And time flies. We are almost in the end of the hour. So I want to check one more if you have some more questions that we missed, because I also want to thank the people who was here. We
Yes.
all we have 48 people now connected. I see here the counter, so it's definitely a great sign that you gave a lot of value. And oh, that's a great question, Javier. What voice exercise can you do to prepare to speak to an audience? And I would add to
Mm,
an audience and in general, because maybe we think to speaking to an audience, we don't speak to an audience all the time, but we
yeah.
speak to people and we have meeting, we have important meeting. And I probably think it's exactly the same. You have to prepare to be your best. As you said, the volume, like, it's not like, okay, hello, Nausheen,
Yeah.
how are you? But I'm super curious to hear your tips.
Yeah. You can actually do two different types of exercises. I mean, there are many, many. There are two that I can teach you. One is how to warm up the vocal
Mm,
cords. Very often, if you've been working all day, you haven't talked to anyone, and you need to be on a meeting, the first thing you're going to do is clear your throat, or you might be coughing. All of that can damage your vocal cords. So, warming up your voice, very similar to how singers do it. It's actually, you can use exactly the same vocal warm ups. And one of them is the simplest one is you just create an sound and
mm,
hold it for about 10 to 15 seconds. So just mm,
mm.
and another version of it is you start with an and then you open it up into different vowel sounds. Again, you're just warming up the vocal cords. So it starts with a and then O and E and the different vowels. So that's a vocal warm up that you can try. And there are thousands of others. If you just go on YouTube and look up vocal warm ups, very often you'll see them for singers, and they're the exact kind of warm ups that you can do to warm up your voice. And the second type is vocal exercises that work on your enunciation. So, one really easy way of doing that is using tongue twisters. You take a tongue twister, like I have a few here that I work with clients on all the time. So, for example, can I cook a proper cup of coffee in a copper coffee pot? Can I cook a proper cup of coffee in a copper coffee pot? And you say it faster and faster and faster. The idea is to still be able to hear all the words
Ah,
separately without them being like, and if you try that right before you need to speak, then you are training your brain to enunciate better. Enunciation is the difference between speaking like this, where you're not really enunciating everything and you're kind of just mumbling, and speaking like this, where you're enunciating every single word. Those are two vocal exercises that you can try any day.
yeah, and I would add, try it tomorrow, because
Yeah.
you gave us so many ideas, so many things, and I invite the people to put them into practice for starting from tomorrow.
Yes.
And so we're almost to the close. We could go on for 2 hours. We could keep asking questions probably, but then of course, I have one last question for you, Noshin, which would be, what would you like to see more and less in your world?
In my world,
Yeah.
always less cynicism. This
Mm,
is something I run away from as a person. I can't stand cynics. It just gives me the sense of hopelessness.
yeah.
I don't believe in a lot of things. I'm not religious or spiritual. So for me, I need to have hope in humanity.
Mm,
I really cannot live in a world where I'm surrounded by people who say, we're just doomed and everything's going to end and everyone is evil and everyone's out to get you. I can't be
yeah.
around people like that. So cynicism and a general sense of negativity about the world, please, we can have less of that. And so more concern and genuineness. I believe that we are just trained and conditioned to be fake, which is really sad. Put on a brave smile, fake interest in someone, even if you're not interested, fake telling people, oh, it's nice when it's
Yeah.
not nice, or it's going okay when it's not okay. Just having the freedom to be more of yourself, which I know is very idealistic because now we're really venturing into philosophy here. Potentially, if you're having a terrible day, you may not be able to just tell everyone about it because you're bringing everyone down or it's too personal, but just feeling like you have the freedom to be yourself. If we can have more of that, that would be an amazing world.
Yeah, I subscribe 100% to that. Thank you for that. And I will also add that you are a living example of this genuineness in always and especially during this hour because we all saw that. And thank you for that, for being how you are and for sharing with us all the things that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roberto. This was one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. So thank you. Thanks for the energy that you brought and the curiosity. And it's been lovely chatting with you. It's been lovely. Every single interaction that we've had has been really great. So thank you.
Same here. Subscribe 100%. And I will also extend this to the audience because there was an
Yes.
amazing question, very good connection. I'm sure many people are going to take things from tomorrow. And that's the beauty of the impact that we're having. So much.
Awesome. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.